So Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is now in theaters everywhere. I got to go see it 2 days early, actually. I got to go see it Monday with my mom. And I'm really looking forward to getting that review out to you guys. But first, I gotta review the last film in this franchise. Before that film, Mission Impossible Fallout, which takes place 3 years after Rogue Nation. Solomon Lane has been captured, and the remains of the Syndicate have now reorganized as a terrorist group known as the Apostles. They plan to acquire 3 plutonium cores for nuclear bombs. Of course, Ethan and his team need to stop them. Chaos, mayhem ensues, and the result is the film in the franchise I was looking forward to talking about the most. Even before I sat down to make the first of these reviews, even before I sat down to make my anticipated films of 2023 list, I knew that reviewing Fallout, just watching that film, was going to be special. All of those 5 films up to this point, they all felt like they fit together in a certain sense. Fallout is definitely a different animal in this franchise. It still has the espionage, it still has the action, it still has the characters that you would expect out of this franchise. But this film manages to pull off a tone that all 5 of those films leading up to this haven't really been able to pull off yet. This film is a brilliant cocktail of fun, excitement, emotion, fear, and all that mixed together creates a film that, to an action fan like me, it's just an unforgettable experience that just burns itself in your brain. But touching on the fear side of things, which is something I'm going to touch on a lot in this review, the opening is kind of bleak. Ethan and his team are having this meeting with these people. They get the 3 plutonium cores, the Apostles show up, and it seems fine for a bit because Ethan has this briefcase, but as soon as he goes to try to save Luther, they disappear, and for a while the film actually convinces you that they might have lost and that these bombs have already been detonated, which leads into my favorite fake situation scene in this franchise. And I haven't talked about these too much in the series. These moments where Ethan and his team put this character in a room, a situation, making them think one thing, but using it to get something out of them. And here they kidnap this scientist and put him in this hospital. And the news is on. It's talking about these nuclear attacks. And this film leaves you in a place of just despair for just a long period of time. You trying to process what you think has happened and wondering if there's even hope. And then once this film reveals what it's all about, the way it makes you feel is like your reaction after someone has done a massive scare prank on you. You're like, whoa. But then you just kind of start laughing with them because they got you so good. It's an opening that's fun, but it's kind of scary also. Let me tell you the real reason why this film is so effective in what it does. It's because of the music. And let me just say, for those of you that don't know, in high school, I had such a great film teacher. We became very close friends. We still talk to this day, even though I've left that school. And I'm always going to remember certain things that he told me. One of them being that music is the thing that separates a good film from a great film. Mission Impossible Fallout is one of the greatest examples of that statement being true. If the music wasn't here, I don't know what this movie would be. This music, among other things in this movie that I'll talk about, it makes it what it is. It makes it one of the best action films ever made, generating intensity and dread. It's a score that has just seeped into my bones. I actually listened to it again before sitting down and doing this. I've heard it so many times and I still don't get tired of it. But with the music enhancing everything, there needs to be a good plot in there to start with. And the screenplay for this is equally as good. And Fallout does very crucial stuff with the character of Ethan Hunt. It's possibly the one where he has to make the hardest choices. Loses the plutonium cores because he decides to save his friend. And then later on in the story, once he's working with the White Widow and pretending that he's John Lark so that he can get Solomon Lane and in the process get closer to the apostles. And then there's this great element to the film where it touches on his fear of having to do bad things to get the mission done. There's this excellent sequence in the movie where it's him playing out in his mind what this extraction of Solomon Lane could look like. This orchestral, ominous music, and it's all visual storytelling, where it shows this person gunning down police officers, and then you find out that it's Hunt. At his core, Ethan is a very honorable person. He doesn't kill innocent people. He does kill, but he only does it when it's absolutely necessary. And this scene, it just enhances the idea that he's worried that he's going to do something that he'll very much regret. But on top of that, there's this other plot line where the apostles are trying to frame Hunt. And the narrative that they're going for is that he's been disavowed and chased by the CIA so many times that, as Agent Walker says,
how long before a man like that has had enough?
And even though you know that that's not what's actually going on, you could see how, in a sense, it could actually happen. There's actually this interesting parallel between Hunt and the apostles in that way. The apostles, these government agents that once they figured out that the stuff they were doing for their governments wasn't what they originally thought they were, they went rogue. There's a moment where Ethan is talking to Solomon Lane. Great villain, knows exactly how to get to Ethan. And in this moment, this movie plays with the idea that what if Hunt, despite all his good intentions, but just everything is up against him, could he actually become like Solomon Lane? Very compelling ideas. The conflicts of all the films leading up to this point in one film, putting Hunt to his breaking point. But now let's talk about the action in this film, which in Rogue Nation I mentioned was really good. But it wasn't Christopher McQuarrie at his peak yet. It was still him experimenting with things, trying things out, seeing what he wanted to do with this series moving forward. This is the film to me that established him as a great director. There are just a lot of inspired scenes in this film. Scenes that I could just imagine him laying in bed awake at nights, shaking, because he just wanted these scenes to actually happen. Fallout is a film that starts out incredible with the action, but it still manages to kind of build up. Where the film starts with this one-take skydive, which is already there is a marvelous cinematic achievement. But it's a scene that happens early on, and the film actually manages to build on top of that. This film has quite possibly the best hand-to-hand combat of this franchise. You can tell that Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill are very much committed to these action sequences. They are doing their own stunts and making it look as real as possible. There's this extensive motorcycle chase in Paris that tops Rogue Nation. Speaking of that city, this film really uses its locations very well, where it creates these expansive shots, these expansive sequences. And I actually noticed that John Wick Chapter 4 actually used this location as well. There's just so much with the architecture of that place that it lends itself to some fantastic action sequences. But speaking about those wide shots, there's one that just actually blew me away. It's this wide of Ethan standing on this building, knowing that Walker is John Lark. And Walker has already threatened to kill Julia if Hunt tries to do anything. And Ethan's just standing on this building, watching Walker leave on this helicopter. This massive shot, he's just a small piece of it. You just feel that things are hopeless. This is my favorite third act of the entire franchise. For one thing, it's Ethan coming across his ex-wife again, which that leads off into a great scene that I'll talk about later. He finds out that she's already married to this other guy, and just this film being able to pull out these emotions of just reminding you of this life he could have had with her. But also, once again, I like the character of Julia, where she's not just there as a plot device for Ethan. She actually gets to do some really important stuff in this film. She helps Luther with one of the bombs. But what really makes this third act special is the final action sequences. The helicopter action, very immersive. Ethan coming up on top of Walker's helicopter right before he's going to release the payload. How did Christopher McQuarrie get that shot? Whatever he was smoking when he thought of that shot, he needs more of it. He needs more of it. Which at this point, let me talk about another character which I've held off talking about too much until now, and that is Walker, played by Henry Cavill, who earns every hair of that mustache. This is a mustache that for Justice League, they had to cover with CGI because around that same time he was filming Mission Impossible Fallout. Henry Cavill is so great in this film, and he plays this character that you're really not supposed to like. Even before you figure out that he's with the Apostles and that he's helping frame Ethan, you don't even like him before that. He's this very arrogant guy, and it's this great dynamic between him and Ethan, where it's very much the muscles versus the smarts. Just the fact that this film has to end with a final confrontation, this final fist fight between these characters to figure out who's going to come out on top. I love that so much. And he has the best villain death of this franchise. This absolutely brutal kill, this hook to the face as this helicopter is falling off this cliff, which at that moment I just thought it would have been so funny if Ethan just looked over. Yeah, try to cover that up with CGI. But that's not even the end of this film. Ethan has to climb this mountain to get to this control and pull out this plug, which seriously, the ending of this film is constant. Not only is Ethan doing all of his stuff, but the film just keeps cutting back to Benji and Ilsa in this house trying to take care of Solomon Lane. Benji almost dies. But anyway, this section of time plays out, and it eventually gets to that the last 2 bombs have been found. And everyone by this point thinks that Ethan was able to get to the control and pull the thing out. And this film gives you another great scare. Just another great shock. They cut these wires, and the screen goes into a blinding white. The sight you would see right as a nuclear explosion happens. But no, that was just a cool effect that they threw in there. And Ethan is on a cliff, and he pulled the thing out. And they just had a few milliseconds to spare. Oh, man. So as you can tell, the action is astounding in this movie. But I feel like this is one of those films that is so action-packed, is so awesome, that some people actually forget that it's also emotionally powerful. There's actually 2 scenes in this movie, one that I'll get to that happens towards the end of the movie, that almost made me cry. First one being this conversation that Luther has with Ilsa. And that's where he starts explaining to her and to us why Ethan and Julia split up. I will admit the scene is a bit exposition-y, but Ving Rhames' performance is so great, and he has such a good friend-brother dynamic with Ethan that I just wanted to hear him tell this story. Ving Rhames' performance, I'm actually surprised I haven't talked about Luther as much in this review series as I thought I would, but he possibly gives his best performance in this franchise thus far. But by the way, that scene also helps Ilsa's journey in the film. One thing I really liked about this movie is just that it expands on her friendship with Ethan. It does some interesting stuff with them. For a while, they seem to be on opposing sides. They have conflicting motivations. Ethan, of course, wants to get his mission done and do certain things with Solomon Lane. She's there to kill him. She wants to kill Lane to prove her loyalty to MI6. And there's some tension between these characters. Friendly tension. They still have this great respect for each other. And as Luther is telling her this story, she realizes how much Ethan has actually sacrificed to keep going with the missions. And her and Ethan have an interaction during the end of the scene, and it signifies that she is finally completely on his side. That no matter what happens at the end of this mission, she's going to help him through it. But as far as this other scene, it's where Ethan and Julia have a moment to themselves, and they actually have this final goodbye. This goodbye that gives Ethan the closure that he needs, that he's been looking for years. It's a moment of understanding between these 2 characters, where as much as they want to be together, They know they can't be together, but they've now both accepted it. This film is an action masterpiece. It is easily among my top 10 favorite action movies of all time, and honestly, it's just one of my favorite movies of all time. I can't imagine another grade to give Mission Impossible Fallout other than an A+. So stay tuned for my review of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which, like I've said, I've already seen. Just need to get this review out there, and now I can go talk about that one. But also, I need to finish off my Indiana Jones review series and give you my thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Yes, I have reviewed all 4 of the other films. You can check that out in a playlist up here. Guys, if you like what you're seeing, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, comment down below, out of these first 6 films, is Mission Impossible Fallout your favorite? Or if you have another favorite, go ahead and list it there as well. Make sure to hit the like button, give me that support, and I'll see you guys next time.